Oops, we've done it again. Well, hello there. It's been a few months since we drug the pale horse home, which of course means the universe has triggered something in the back of our heads that has caused us to go and to the old hunting grounds and start stalking out our next rescue. And we ended up dragging home old Machy here. I don't know why this happens about every 3 to 6 months, because we can't get them built and running in that time frame. We just typically it takes years for these projects. So of course we got a lifetime's backlog of projects, but we still keep dragging this home. Anyways, we're gonna go ahead and talk about this brown pony with the party hat on, and what's good about it and what's awful about it.
The good things about this example of a 1971 Mach 1. It is a true Mach 1, and according to the Marty report and this VIN number, it's one of 3 cars that are this color, this trim level, with the original high-fluting interior and rear seat. It's got a good VIN number, so we should be able to get it registered without any problems with a nice clean title. It came original with the 351 Cleveland and the highly sought after 4V or 4-barrel heads, and the high compression ratio heads. So the best factory combination you can ask for. And it came with a pile of parts from other cars. Now the bad. It has been in a front end rack, and some of the front structure is tweaked and is going to require a bit of untweaking. The engine has been without valve covers for an unknown amount of time. The seller says he pulled them to get them cleaned, and he's going to mail them to us. We shall see if that actually happens. Pulling the spark plugs, one cylinder's definitely got a pile of rust in it. It's full of, and so we're going to have to probably pull the heads at some point, take a look inside and see how bad it is. But the engine is locked up solid, and even after soaking with some aerocryl, it did not want to move after 24 hours. So we're going to keep playing with it. The transmission won't shift into a gear. Don't know why that is. Gonna have to pull it apart and take a look. And of course, the highfalutin interior, which was actually pretty sought after, has been stripped and put into another car. So the previous owner, the person we purchased it from, actually restores this vintage Mustang, and he pulled it to put it in one of his other cars that was in much better shape. And now that we've discussed the problems, let's talk about what's really ugly on this car. And that is the rust. It is definitely the rustiest vehicle that we have pulled home, and that is saying something. There's noticed some fair amount of rust in the front structural members, based upon the evidence of wildlife living in the side the cab, and the fact that it's got a bunch of walnut husks. It was in a forested area, and the level of rust suggests near the coast. So I'm thinking Central California. I'm assuming Central California, somewhere along the coast. At least I'm hoping it was in California. If it wasn't, then another ugly part would be getting it a title for it. On both sides, the quarter panels below the wheel wells are from the top of the wheel arch down are Swiss cheese. There's not much left of them, and plenty of evidence of really, really bad repairs, which probably only made the situation much worse. The floors are the very popular floor delete option, as Derek likes to discuss on Vice Grip Garage. Someone has started the process of ripping out what little sheet metal remained to replace it. However, it's pretty clear, they're probably working with the cold chisel. So that is going to be something that needs to be addressed if this car is going to be put back on the road. Is probably a completely new floor plan. And now for something completely different.
Okay, welcome back to the Pit Stop Ranch. Another rusted out crap can has fallen into our position, and we're going to do a little different discussion on this one than we normally do. We're going to kind of do more of a interview with the Pit Stop Ranch. My partner is the one that found this thing. How'd you find it, and what were you thinking when you did find it?
I guess I was just bored, and as I do when I'm bored, I was looking on the internet for classifieds, and I justify it by saying I'm just trying to compare what's out there with what I've got.
Okay.
Just a justification, because I know that at the end of the day it ends to something dumb.
Which
Yes.
definitely happened today.
Which is definitely what happened today. I came across actually several other probably better candidates, but they were a little bit more money, and I shouldn't be buying anything because I don't have room or time or motivation for that matter for anything. And I've been obsessed with the 351 Cleveland 4-barrel, the 4V motor, for the longest time. I don't know why, I don't know how, I've just been obsessed with it. And when I came across an advertisement for a 1971 Mach 1 that still had the 351 Cleveland with the 4-speed top loader in it, I was just obsessed with it. I was like, this is one of those unicorn situations. I know of people that sell just the bare blocks for like $1,000. So for one to come up on advertisement for an inexpensive price, what I would consider a reasonable price, I mean, as far as I'm concerned, the guy was giving it away. Basically, he was just asking, like, you know, those advertisements where they ask money for the puppy just to make sure it doesn't go to the puppy mill. That's just kind of, that's the way he was advertising it. So
looking for a good home, and to prove it's a good home, he wanted a little bit of money, but definitely potentially effectively in the pretty cheap range.
yes. Well, I mean, and then after having decided I was going to buy it mentally, even after looking it up and realizing that this vintage car, I mean, I looked at Bring a Trailer, and things go for stupid money on Bring a Trailer, and this exact make and model, there were like 4 examples of it, and they went unsold. The bids on it were not the stupid amount that I'm accustomed to seeing for a complete car on Bring a Trailer.
Right.
So I realized that this was me wanting to buy basically the engine and transmission, because I really hate this body style. When I was a kid, I would walk home from school, and there was a guy that had 3 or 4 of these in front of his house, and I was just like, I would never buy one of those.
Yeah, the 6970 version is a lot prettier car.
I think the lines on the 6970 are a lot more nostalgic. I like those a lot better.
Yeah.
Of the fastback Mustangs, the
Yeah.
6970 of the first generation is probably my favorite.
Right. So basically, and what's special about the 71 Mach 1 engine and trans?
Oh, so the 71 in particular is the Cleveland 4-barrel heads that had the much better flowing the head design with the canted valves and the
Well, yeah, the Cleveland itself means canted and slanted valves,
Yes.
staggered and canted valves.
very, very similar to what you would see in a big block Chevy
Exactly.
of much of a later generation.
No, the big block Chevy had that. The Mark IV big block Chevy had it and started in 1965.
Okay, well, so they're very similar to a big block Chevy.
Yeah.
So they had a very, very high flow head, which really wasn't great for street driving. It was really only good for wide open throttle. But in 1970 and 71, they had what they called the closed port or quench style.
Actually, it's a chamber, closed chamber.
Closed chamber, there you go. Closed chamber, quench style, that they stopped doing in 72. So the 1971 heads are of a high desirability.
What do you think of this example that we have paid money for and spent half the day to drive out, pick up, and bring home?
I'm kind of kicking myself for I had it in my head that it was mine already.
Right.
In my head, I had already spent, and now that I've
mental ownership already.
Yeah, I took mental ownership of it over the internet, and I probably should have walked away from it, even though we drove all that way, because it is. Whereas the gentleman selling it was very honest about how he said
this condition.
He was very honest about the condition.
Did he mention it had been in a front-end collision?
He did not mention, but it was in the pictures. He was more worried about the body rot, the Swiss cheese of the body, which in our experience isn't really as big a deal as most people make.
Why do you feel that way?
I feel the seller had a Marty report for this VIN number, showing that this make, this model, this package, there was only 3 of these made. This exact car, and this being one of the 3, made it like a highly desirable. Now, even before driving out there, I realized one of the reasons why that this car was a special car was it had a special interior package for this make, model, year, and that had already been ripped out. We knew that wasn't there going into it.
Yeah, in fact, the seller actually, I think, bought the car so he could pull the interior out of it.
Yeah, he bought the car and pulled the interior out and put it in another, I think he put it in a Boss for some reason. The color scheme, everything about it, and made this one of a more desirable.
Well, unique. I don't know about
unique.
I don't know about desirable. Unique.
Yeah, I made it unique.
Rare, but don't know if anyone cares.
And obviously, it's not as many people care as I would have imagined.
Yeah.
Based on the documentation of the low sales.
The 71 Mach 1 isn't necessarily the unicorn we initially thought it would. Just, magic words, Mach 1, and then knowing that 71 was kind of the end of the run of their actual performance drivetrains.
The 71 is when they kind of stopped focusing on performance and started focusing on emissions.
Looking at the undercarriage, this has got very close, if not the same undercarriage to your 65 Mustang.
Yes, very close to the 65.
So looking at the suspension, looking at the brakes, it's still drum brakes all the way around. It is very much as commented, this is still part of the first generation of Mustangs, even though it looks dramatically different from the 65, 64, 65, 66 Mustangs. We purchased it with a bill of sale. Seller is convinced it's not in the system anymore. We're not even sure if the title's in his name or not, because it sounded like he just picked up the car not long ago and stripped the interior out of it.
Yes.
So.
All the things we tell everybody else not to do.
Yeah, we've been around the block a few times, enough times with vehicles with title issues like that. That becomes a negotiation point. And again, we felt that the price for what, even in this messed up basket case, felt the price was reasonable. We could have argued, we could have debated on it a little bit, but I think. I don't think we're basically, worst case scenario, we're not going to lose money on it. I think we can sell, a bunch of the parts and then scrap the rest and recover if we had to. If that became the exit strategy, if we needed to get out of the car. Before realizing all of that, we were actually pretty excited and felt this was a smoking hot deal at the price. And what is the advantage of buying a vehicle that is rough?
Oh, well, we went over the options. Being a 1971 Mustang, every single part of this car is available somewhere or the other. Everybody, the parts availability for first generation Mustangs is just phenomenal. And not to mention just having something, when we first looked at it and being such a unique vehicle, the first inclination was to, oh, that's such a unique vehicle, it's a piece of history, perhaps we should restore it back to its original grandeur. Then realizing once again that one of the reasons that made it unique was the interior that's missing, and then the spoiler package, which was also missing. That one of the reasons that it was many of the reasons that made it unique, so unique, were already gone, which kind of gave us basically a desirable platform that was basically a blank canvas. So allowing yourself to get creative with maybe a resto mod styling, or maybe a more modern interior, or even a racing style, something that these things were popular on the racetrack in the quarter mile for quite some time. Not as popular on the road courses, but with modern technology, coilovers and link style rear suspensions, you could turn it into a track car. It is a pretty solid foundation for something like that. But we had all of these different options. We didn't have to stick to the original formatting based on the VIN number. Would have been a nice little guidebook, but you could take as many interpretations to make it your own personal car as you wanted to, considering that it had already been in an accident. You weren't really preserving history, you were saving a vehicle that would have otherwise been crushed or damaged or lost.
Well, now this car here, let's say not a concourse restoration, but a nice restoration. Mm-hmm. What is your research telling you it would be worth?
About $45K.
Okay.
For a roadworthy, what Haggerty would call a fair condition, goes for about $40,000, $40,000 to $45,000.
Okay.
And for a mint condition, it's like $65,000.
Okay.
In this current market.
So even though it's the less desirable
with this engine and transmission combination.
Okay.
Yeah.
And that's a big deal because it's the high compression ratio Cleveland with the
4-speed manual top loader.
4-speed manual top loader. Both of which are probably seized.
Yeah, and that was the other thing that made me once we got it and realizing that the
valve covers are missing.
All the pictures that they sent, the valve covers were on. But then when we got there, the valve covers were off. The more and more we're talking about it, the more and more I'm thinking that it's a parts car.
Once again, everything's fixable if you're willing to take the time and spend the money.
Fix anything except a broken heart, and I've been known to mend a few of those.
Oh!
Yeah, so it's all fixable. It's whether or not
is it worth fixing it? Do we have the desire? Do we have the interest in getting this one back on the road? And the answer right now is in this moment he's hesitating on it. I have no problem. It's just going to be 2 years before we get to it.
I'm thinking when I purchased it with the expectation that all of this stuff worked, this was going to be a 4 to 5 years down the road project.
Okay.
It was just going to store in the garage for about 4 or 5 years.
Yeah.
And after that 4 or 5 years, I was going to reassess whether or not it was worth keeping.
Right.
But at this point, it's basically looking like a tear down and parts car. I mean, 4 or 5 years from now, it might be a diamond in the rough, but
yeah,
more than likely, it's a parts car. Just it's a tale of woe from the Pit Stop Ranch about how even we do this all the time. I'd like to say that we're pretty experienced at this type of stuff, and we still fall into the same trap.
I think we're exceptionally well experienced about it, but I think that experience has given us a philosophical perspective on it.
and not really a professional bird's eye view.
Because you know, as I used to like to say, you know, we are professionals, but not at this. And the reason why I always said that was because we're not dependent on this. We're advanced hobbyists. You know, this is how we waste time and money. And so the fact that we're not dependent upon turning around and making our money back plus a healthy profit on any of this, all right, we're out the money. All right, we could have used the money to buy parts for one of the other vehicles and the time to work on one of the other vehicles. Instead, we spent it on this. All right, well, it's only money, we'll make some more. We deliberately bottom feed looking for rough cars. And this one is an very extreme example. We deliberately look for them. And what are some of the reasons why we look for them? Obviously, once again, we could afford to buy better vehicles. And we always advise, whenever we talk to people just getting into the hobby, or people who, even if they've been around the hobby a long time and they're considering their next vehicle, we always advise, buy the best example of the car you want, the most complete example, the best example that you can find. Don't do like us, do the smart thing. Even though we know that and know better, there are reasons why we deliberately bottom feed and look for junky vehicles. We deliberately bottom feed and buy these rough vehicles because like this one, when we were initially looking at it, it was a blank slate. You can do a restoration on it, but that's a lot of money, a lot of time to get a vehicle that quite honestly even knew wasn't that great of a car. I mean, let's be honest, if you look at the suspension on this stuff, turning and stopping was kind of a
that was an afterthought.
Yeah, that was an afterthought. Looking cool, going fast in a straight line was the primary goal.
They're bullet shaped because they're just supposed to go straight like a bullet.
Yeah,
that's just, they were intended to go forward.
You know, the suspension geometry they don't handle and drive very well in the original condition with all new parts. And our interest in this is we want to drive them, and we want them to. We like the blank slate. We like the idea that where we live, an older car is a blank slate to build whatever wild idea we have. Whether we want just a cool cruiser, we want to build a drag car, we want to build a race car. If we want to also then register it for the road, which when you take them off the road, when you permanently disable a vehicle so you can't operate it on the road legally anymore, that dramatically destroys its resale value. Now, we don't really care about resale value historically, but it is a metric to go by, and it's something that, okay, there might come a time in the future where that does matter to us.
Whereas we've never actually bought and sold a car for an actual profit. Whenever we look at cars, we always justify our thinking by saying, oh, well, look, this goes for that much. If we have to, we could just sell it.
Precisely. The only reason why this thing is even worthwhile, even marginally to us, is because we can do all the work ourselves.
You do this basically out of passion.
Yes.
If you really wanted a performance vehicle, you wouldn't be buying this old stuff. You could buy a C8 Corvette. The down payment that you would put on this and the amount of money you would spend every week fixing it up would equal the monthly payment.
So yeah, that's the reason why we do actively look for this. And this particular example might be too far gone to actually bring back. On that edge, how motivated are we? It's kind of mangled and rough. Nothing we can't handle, but it's something that you got to be really motivated to want to do something with. And the options are, because it is so rough, there's absolutely zero pressure to try and do an original restoration on it. We can totally go absolutely nuts on it and make it a Mad Max car, or strip it down, straighten it out, put a bunch of fiberglass on it and go do road course, completely redo the chassis on it and go do road course racing with it. There's all sorts of things you can do And that's the advantage of a vehicle, a rough vehicle like this.
It's a passion. If your passion is building the car,
Yeah.
and you want to build it to spec, then that's your thing.
Yeah,
Do that.
Totally be your thing.
Do that. I'm more of a driver. I'd rather drive an ugly car than store a pretty car. I'd like to have both, but
Yeah.
you know, I'd like to drive a pretty car someday, but I don't see that happening.
Not the way we keep buying ugly cars.
No, not the way I drive either. It won't stay pretty for very long.
Yeah, that too. All right, well, and there you go. Pit Stop Ranch buys a thing, Pit Stop Ranch then interviews itself about a thing. I hope you enjoyed this little episode, and maybe you learned something about what makes us tick, and if you have any insight on how we're broken or why we're broken, that would be appreciated. Not that we care, it's more just idle curiosity. I hope you enjoyed this slightly different take on introducing a new project car. If you like what we're doing here at the Pit Stop Ranch, please hit the old like button. If you want to support us and you haven't done so already, hit the subscribe button. And as always, have a Mustang-tastic day.